Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Good Game Podcast. I am your host, A1K, back at it yet again for another episode of the Good Game Podcast. This is episode number 3, and we're here on August 2nd, 2024. And it's a lot of good information I want to share with you guys today. But before I get started, make sure if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, you hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes coming soon. Also, if you're listening to us on Spotify, make sure you follow the account on Spotify and don't miss the episode. Hit that bell notification so you get notified anytime we drop a new episode. Share the video with a friend. And with that being said, all right, so first and foremost, we have an article here from Yahoo Life, written by Corin Miller. Its title says, "Parents of Olympic athletes are wearing heart rate monitors. Does this prove that spectating is really a sport?" Olympic coverage is not complete without shots of anxious family members watching in the stands. But NBC has decided to kick things up a notch this time around, having parents of Olympians wear heart rate monitors and then displaying the results on TV. So when I first read this article, I definitely found it interesting that they decided to do this. It's definitely something that we haven't seen very often. You know, usually when we watch these sports competitions and the Olympics and such and so forth, we're so focused and locked onto the athletes, these tremendous athletes that work their entire lives to put themselves in these positions, that we sometimes forget to focus on the audience. And a lot of times the audience watching these sporting events have just as much anxiety and nervousness about them as the athletes themselves. So I think this is a good way to showcase that. American gymnast Hesley Rivera's father, Henry Rivera, wore the heart monitor during her uneven bars routine at the qualifiers for the team all-around competition. The monitor showed his heart rate was at 164 beats per minute at the start of his other routine, but his heart rate jumped up to 181 beats per minute as he continued to watch. Now, in all fairness, 164 beats per minute is a little high for a resting heart rate. But to see his heart rate spike all the way up to around 180 beats per minute by simply watching the competition, not even participating in it, but just watching, I think that's an interesting thing to see and to learn about. I mean, it definitely is understandable. I mean, me, myself, I watch parts of the Olympic competitions as well as certain sports I don't usually watch, such as gymnastics, fencing. I watch some of the shooting and archery competitions, and I found myself having an increased heart rate myself, although I'm not wearing a heart monitor or keeping track. But there definitely was some nervousness that I felt watching some of these competitions. I mean, like I said earlier, these are the best athletes in the world, and even if you may not be necessarily familiar with every sport and every competition taking place during this year's Summer Olympics, I think you can definitely respect the fact that all of these athletes are the best in their respective fields. And when we watch them compete, we're watching years and years of hard work and dedication being brought to the forefront amongst millions and millions of people viewing, not just in Paris locally, but worldwide. So shout out to all the athletes, and shout out to all the people who agreed to wear heart monitors so that we can collect some of this interesting information. So what's the story with the heart rate monitors at the Olympics? The heart rate monitors are sponsored by Figs, a medical apparel brand. Figs plans to continue to sponsor the monitors throughout the Olympic Games, so you can expect to see more of these metrics on your screen in the future. Because this is a new integration, audiences will have to tune into the Olympic Games to see where this feature will show up next. However, it seems that wearing the monitors is ultimately up to the parents. Simone Biles' parents, for example, did not wear the monitors and were not mic'd during their daughter's routines, which is completely understandable. I mean, you know, if you watch the women's gymnastic competitions, and if you happen to catch Simone Biles' performance, I think it goes without saying that she is the greatest gymnast who ever lived. Not just female, but in totality, she has to be one of, if not the greatest gymnast who ever lived, just based on her performances and her consistency. And it's very understandable why her parents wouldn't want to wear a heart monitor, because it probably will be spiking higher than anything we're used to seeing. So, and that's understandable. Good on them. You know, they showed up, they supported her daughter, and that's all you could ask for. No need to have a heart monitor or a microphone. That could be an option that's more suitable for other people. So what's the point? Besides pure entertainment, it's to showcase some of the lesser known behind the scenes emotional stories that go into building bodies that break records, according to Benet Eaton, FIG's chief marketing officer. So what can we learn from the heart monitor readings? Henry Rivera's heart rate monitor reading got plenty of attention, and Karen Hong, the mother of U.S. gymnast Asher Hong, had readings that spiked to 144 beats per minute during her son's vault during the qualification match. Cardiologists say it's hardly surprising to have an elevated heart rate while watching an intense competition, especially if it's while cheering on a loved one. The readings simply show how incredibly stressful and adrenaline-producing the experience of watching sports events can be, especially if your child is out there competing. Dr. Jim Liu, a cardiologist at The Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, tells Yahoo Life. Liu noted that Henry Rivera's heart rate is usually expected with full exercise workouts, so to be able to achieve that by just being a spectator is pretty amazing. And I would have to agree with that. The fact that a person is able to increase their heart rate just by simply watching an athletic competition is pretty incredible. That just goes to show you that the power of the mind and how we have evolved to create these survival mechanisms in order to put us in optimal states of performance and survival. So Dr. Theodore Maglione, Associate Professor of Medicine and Director of the Robert Wood Johnson Electrophysiology Laboratory at Rutgers, tells Yahoo Life that it's a normal physiological response to have an increase in heart rate when you're feeling stressed, angry, upset, or even going through a moment of extreme joy. This is the same mechanism behind one's heart rate increasing during the flight or fight response, he says. When you go through an emotional stress, your body releases various hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol, which usually cause an increase in heart rate and blood pressure. He also notes that parents of Olympians face added stress that can lead to higher heart rates than other Olympic fans. As long as the reason for the increased heart rate is purely excitement or stress from the event, there is not a concern. Dr. Paul Drury, a cardiologist and associate medical director of electrophysiology at Memorial Care Saddleback Medical Center in Laguna Hills, California, tells Yahoo Life, "We know that stress can drive a significant increase in heart rate." He adds, while this is generally considered a normal response, it still can increase the odds of having a serious heart event, such as a heart attack in people who are at risk of heart issues. But in most excited viewers and family members, the heart rate should come down again pretty soon after the event. As long as you don't have any other symptoms besides maybe feeling like your heart is beating stronger or fast in the moment, you should be fine, according to medical experts. A normal resting heart rate, which is your heart rate when you're sitting calm, is usually between 60 and 100 beats per minute, according to the American Heart Association. They also say that athletes can have a resting heart rate as low as 40 beats per minute. However, heart rates can vary depending on what you're doing and will typically spike during exercise. Target heart rate zones during exercise for mostly healthy adults vary by age, but can be anywhere from 100 to 170 beats per minute. For a 20-year-old to 85 to 145 beats per minute to a 50-year-old, according to the AHA. The average maximum heart rate can range from 150 beats per minute from a 70-year-old to 200 beats per minute for a 20-year-old, according to the same organization. So if you're watching the Olympics at home and you're worried that your heart rate is getting too high, we recommend maybe switching the channel, closing your eyes, maybe taking some time to meditate, take a short break, take a walk, or even calling or texting a friend. Either of these options will be fine.
Yes, yes.
And if your heart rate remains elevated and or you feel chest pain, shortness of breath, or dizziness in this setting, seek medical attention immediately. So with that being said, make sure you guys hit the like button if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, and let's go ahead and get into our next topic. Let me ask a favor real quick. If you haven't already, hit that like button. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Good Game Podcast. We're going to have episodes coming at you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Yes, yes, yes.
And make sure you share the video with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on Spotify, follow us on Spotify at The Good Game Podcast. A lot of good episodes coming to you guys. Yes, that's right. 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday,
Yes, yes,
and Friday.
yes.
So make sure you hit that notification bell so you get notified every time we drop a new episode. And you could be part of The Good Game Podcast. Don't miss any of this good game. It's a lot of good games we're going to be discussing. A lot of sports and entertainment related topics we're going to get into today. But before I get started, I also want to mention, don't forget to follow me on my Instagram at A1K Digital Media. I will be posting more behind the scenes content on my Instagram as well as Threads. So make sure you hit that like button and follow those accounts.
Yes, yes.
And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Moving on to some NFL news.
Yes.
The NFL's new kickoff rules got mixed reviews at the Hall of Fame game. The first 2 kickoff return under the NFL's new rules looked a lot like the kickoffs over the past during the Chicago Bears' 21-17 weather-shortened win over the Houston Texans in Thursday's Hall of Fame game. So the NFL overhauled its old kickoff rules this season in hopes to promote more returns. Of the 8 kickoffs that took place Thursday, only 1 resulted in a touchback. That happened 73% of the time last season, which was the highest touchback rate since 1970. The debut of the new rules came with 2 illegal formation penalties, 1 of each team, for the players leaving the setup zone early. Players are not allowed to move until the ball is touched by the returner or makes contact with the ground. So I got a chance to watch this game yesterday, and it was interesting to see these new kickoff rules being implemented. I think it was definitely different. I think guys will definitely need some time to adjust. Like anything in life, whenever there's change, there's always an adjustment period. And I think that overall this is a good move by the NFL. I think this will eliminate a lot of unwanted injuries. And I think that the NFL made a good move. And it's interesting to see them implement this in the Hall of Fame game, in which former return specialist Devin Hester was being enshrined to the NFL Hall of Fame. So it's interesting that former NFL player Devin Hester was being introduced into the Hall of Fame on this occasion, considering that Devin Hester was somebody who I'm sure you well know was a special team specialist, was a kick return specialist, someone who was known for his speed and his agility during kick returns. And now that the NFL has decided to change some of these rules, it's most likely that we won't see a player like Devin Hester again. I think that the change of rules, although it makes the game a lot safer and a lot more fun to watch, and guys will probably have a lot longer careers due to these changes, I think that it does eliminate some of the spectacle of the sport. It does eliminate some of those plays where we watch a guy receive a kick on the 1 yard line or in the end zone and run it back for 80 yards, 90 yards. Sometimes guys receive it a little short on around the 20-yard line. But I think that regardless, this is good for the sport. This is good for the athletes. This is a good way to keep the fans engaged. I'm sure this will at least help minimize some of the reckless injuries that don't need to happen. And most importantly, I think that this will give guys who maybe didn't see a lot of playing time on other areas of the field, they'll be able to get playing time on special teams due to the fact that it's a lot more skill based. You know, guys are lining up basically only 5 yards away from each other at the start of the kickoff. So it's going to be a lot more hand checking. You're going to see coaches use a lot more strategy in that aspect. And I think that special teams has always been a very vital part to the game of American football, considering that not too many sports have an aspect of the game where the offense can dictate how and where the defense will get the ball at the switch of possession. So I think it definitely will increase the use of certain tactics, and it'll be interesting to see. I don't think we'll see anything implemented right away during the preseason. We may see some things being implemented during the first couple of weeks of the regular season, but I'll definitely be interested to see what happens during this year's playoffs and how coaches and teams are able to come up with certain tactics and schemes involving special teams and the new rules.
Yes, yes.
Thursday's game was officially canceled after severe weather stopped play for more than 35 minutes late into the third quarter. Now, before the game was ended by the rain delay, it was very interesting to see a lot of backup players and third-string players compete. Although preseason games typically aren't known for being extremely competitive, it was definitely good to see some football again. It's been a long offseason. The fans definitely, as always, Chicago fans are crazy out there with their bear costumes on and the bear jerseys. A lot of people have a lot of faith in Caleb Williams to be able to lead that Chicago Bears team to a playoff run. Now, I think there's definitely going to be an adjustment period in Chicago. I think that they're going to have to build some chemistry for sure. And there's just so much unknown with Chicago that I think is definitely great to have that team going on the up and up. And I know Chicago Bears fans are excited. But this is definitely going to be a team that I'll watch in the next coming weeks to see how they progress. On the other side, we have the Houston Texans, who C.J. Stroud, their leading quarterback, wasn't starting, of course. I think we all know that C.J. Stroud has cemented himself as a top 5 quarterback in this league, especially what he was able to do with the Houston Texans last year. I mean, this is a franchise in the Houston Texans who were almost on the brink of irrelevancy. I mean, there was not a soul. I'm not going to say that. Let me take it back. I'm not going to say that. There's a lot of Houston Texans fans. I don't want to get anybody mad or upset. I don't want to ruffle any feathers or nothing like that. But let's just be honest. Before C.J. Stroud showed up, the Houston Texans were the best definition of trash. And they were going down the wrong direction. But luckily, C.J. Stroud was able to show up and turn the franchise around. So, I think that the Houston Texans are definitely going to be a problem in the upcoming season. I definitely would like the Texans' chances more so than the Chicago Bears. Even though the Chicago Bears technically won, it was a preseason game and it was a rain delay. So, small sample size. But we definitely got to see a little taste of football. And that's always a good thing. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. And let's get into it. All right. So, the next thing we're going to talk about today on episode number 3 of the Good Game Podcast is this article from ESPN, written by Brian Windhorst, ESPN senior writer. Steve Kerr aiming to keep Team USA players in, quote, usual roles. Paris Team USA coach Steve Kerr had an indirect message for those who have been criticizing his lineup decisions during the Olympics. Putting the best team on the floor doesn't always mean having the best NBA players together all at once.
Yes.
And I would definitely agree with that. It was fun watching the last game Team USA men's basketball had against South Sudan. It was definitely a more impressive victory than game one. I think that Team USA men's basketball had a lot to prove in that game, and I'm excited to see what they do Saturday against Puerto Rico. And honestly, I think it's pretty interesting to see people who have never coached or maybe have only coached on a certain level, or people with very little basketball experience in general, speak on the decisions of head coach Steve Kerr. This is an individual who is as decorated as anybody when it comes to coaching the sport of basketball. And according to Steve Kerr, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to put their 5 leading scorers on the floor. Those guys don't complement each other well. And just from a basketball perspective, that is true. It makes a lot of sense. So I think oftentimes people from the outside looking in, they think that the lineup should be just the best 5 players on the court at the same time. And there's a few reasons why you don't want to do that. First of all, basketball is a game of matchups. So it's not necessarily about who is the best player. It's about who is the best matchup for the team that you're playing. For example, you wouldn't want to have somebody who is known for being a perimeter shooter. So you wouldn't want somebody who's known for being a perimeter shooter to guard the other team's best perimeter shooter, right? So you may do something like you may put the best shooter on the other team's worst shooter. That way, whatever points your best shooter generates, he can at least outscore the other team's worst shooter. And then you could have your best defender on the other team's best shooter, right? Very simple idea, very simple concept. So what Steve Kerr has been doing with the lineup is he's been putting people like Kevin Durant coming off the bench, which he has been quoted as being okay with. He's benched stars such as Jason Tatum and Joel Embiid as part of the game plan decisions in wins over Serbia and South Sudan. So it seems like all the decisions Steve Kerr is making is at least translating into wins. I don't think anybody has the right to criticize the decisions, at least as long as they're winning. And like I've said before in previous episodes, I think that the men's USA basketball team will win Olympic gold. I think they are the best team, they are the best roster, and they have the best coach. So as an example of how he's been making lineup decisions, Steve Kerr explained why he has left Devin Booker in his starting lineup throughout most of the 7 games Team USA has played in the pre-Olympic exhibitions and in France. Booker is a star scorer in the NBA, but for the national team, he has been willing to play the role of ball pressure, on-ball defender, point guard, or cog in the offense, so other players in the lineup like LeBron James and Steph Curry can play closer to their usual NBA roles that Kerr prefers. Devin is probably the guy who's been most adaptable to go from a different role in the NBA to a new one here, Kerr said. The offense clicks when he's out there. The defense is really good. That's why he started every game and seems to be good with any combination. Tatum said not playing was humbling. We're talking about Jason Tatum here. But that he wouldn't hold a grudge under the circumstances. Holiday hasn't complained about being in and out of the starting lineup. Durant said he's fine with coming off the bench, as I said earlier. So just understanding that you have to play a role. I've always taken pride in being able to do a little bit of everything on the court, Booker said. You never know when your moment is going to be, so I try to be solid all around. And I think that's a very good mentality to have. I think all of these athletes have to take the mentality of being a team player, especially in these Olympics, because you have so much talent on the Team USA men's side that it's so easy to get egos involved and for guys to feel more important than the moment. But the only thing that should be important is these guys competing and giving it their all and going out and winning that gold medal for Team USA. And if they can do that, I think that all the lineups will be justified. I don't really think anyone cares too much about what certain lineups look like. I mean, when you have guys like LeBron James and Steph Curry on the team, these two guys are definitely going to start, right? So when you have, if you guys know these two individuals' game, I mean, Steph Curry is one of the greatest shooters, if not the greatest shooter we've ever seen on the basketball court. And of course, LeBron James is considered to be the GOAT by a lot of people, one of the top 3 players of all time. High basketball intelligence, can of course make plays even at his age of almost 40. He's right around 40, and he can still compete at the highest level with a lot of these young guys. So you have to surround these guys with team members who can complement their attributes, guys who can run sets and get in the open spaces. And all of these guys are professional and knowledgeable enough about the game of basketball. I believe they can exploit any weakness that another team has, especially against a team like Puerto Rico. I think that they'll win the game by around 10 to 15 points. They may start off a little slow. Usually whenever playing a new team, there's always an adjustment period, but I just think the talent level is there, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The team, men's USA basketball team, is the best roster assembled in basketball in recent memories. You know, we could speak on the 92 Dream Teams and all the teams in the 90s Olympic basketball teams, but we're just talking about recent times, and this roster is just from top to bottom. I mean, the bench is better than a lot of these countries' starting fives. I mean, I'm going to just be honest with you, like, it just is what it is. Like, a lot of these countries' rosters look like a whole bunch of hot garbage. But that's okay. I mean, you know, it's definitely, basketball is definitely a growing sport, and I do expect countries to get better over time. But as of right now, I'm rocking with Team USA men's basketball, and definitely excited to see them play next on Saturday. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic. This is the Good Game Podcast, episode 3. Make sure you like the video, share the video with a friend. If you like this sports commentary, if you like this entertainment talk, make sure you follow us on Spotify at the Good Game Podcast. And let's get it. All right, everybody, keeping this thing moving here. Now, a little women's USA basketball news. The USA women's basketball team survived a hard moment versus Belgium to reach Olympic quarterfinals. I got a chance to watch some of this game, and it was a very good game. I liked what the USA women's basketball team was able to do. You know, I mean, personally, I am a Las Vegas Aces fan, so it was good to see Asia out there. It was good to see Kelsey Plum. It was good to see all the girls out there balling, doing their thing, and play with the other phenomenal athletes that the WNBA has. And it was just good to see all these girls on the court at the same time. They definitely look like they have established some chemistry at this point in the competition. And they had a good win. Belgium's women's basketball team is definitely a tough team. They definitely play with a lot of physicality. We saw them showcase some skill, and for a moment there, they definitely made it a close game. Belgium put out a rare scare into the Americans Thursday, pulling to within 4 points in the second half before Team USA established control en route to an 87-74 victory. According to guard Diana Taurasi, they're just a really good team, a really, really good team. They probably are one of the best teams in the world. So USA women's basketball, they have been good for so long, and they're one of those teams where when they compete in Olympic events, people kind of just assume they're going to win. More so even than, I would argue, the men's side at times. But this was a good game. Definitely like what we saw from the country of Belgium. According to center Asia Wilson, you just want to go out there and play your best game. And I think we did that. I think on the defensive end, it was a great showing. And I love when the crowd goes against us. I feel like that is a beautiful thing about our game, is playing in those atmospheres and proving people wrong, wanting to hush the crowd a little bit. So I'm glad we were able to execute that. Wilson's interior dominance is the backbone of Team USA's half-court strategy, and her teammates repeatedly fed her for relief baskets as the Americans struggled with their offensive execution. Wilson finished with 23 points and 13 rebounds, her second double-double in as many games, but did have 6 turnovers plus 3 steals. Now, I'm a huge A'ja Wilson fan. I've been saying this for a couple years now. I think a lot of people would agree with me. A'ja Wilson is the best women's basketball player in the world, undoubtedly. And I believe the Las Vegas Aces will definitely complete the three-peat and win their 3rd consecutive Women's National Basketball Association title. With that being said, I think that going forward, Team USA Women's Basketball will definitely figure out how to be more productive on the offensive side. I like that they were constantly looking to feed A'ja Wilson in the post. They played some good defense when it mattered. It's so easy to nitpick and say they should have did this and they should have did that differently, but when you win the game and the closest it ever got was 4 points, I think that is an acceptable result. You definitely want to clean up some of what was going on towards the 3rd quarter and the beginning of the 4th quarter, but I think they'll figure it out. The talent is definitely there. Other countries' teams have definitely showed some improvement as far as the roster, but ultimately there's no country like the USA for basketball. So until that changes, I'm definitely rocking with Team USA Women's Basketball to win the gold. Breanna Stewart played her trademark game, running the floor to create a string of transition opportunities. She ended with 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. The U.S. won the fast break point battle by a lopsided 22-5 with Stewart as the driving force. So yeah, man, in this game of basketball, it's all about runs. Whenever you can score more fast break points than the other team, especially 22-5, you're definitely going to be at a very strong advantage. And we all know Breanna Stewart is one of the best fast break players in the league. Being so close to Belgium in the way that they continue to show support, Stewart said, is what you want in the Olympics. And I just said on TV, it's like, I hope when we get to LA, we have that, because the amount of pride in representing your country it's like no other. And I definitely would agree with that. Definitely, for sure, looking forward to the 2028 Olympics, which will be hosted in Los Angeles. And I expect the USA teams to show out in every category. So definitely excited for that and excited to continue watching the Olympics of this year. The dominant American women aren't always the most popular among international fans, and it was a hostile crowd toward them at times. Boos rained down at the end of the game when Sabrina Ionescu made a long three-pointer with 4 seconds left and then put her finger to her mouth to silence the crowd. See, that's the type of attitude we like to see in sports. Sports is about competition and about getting the crowd involved. And anytime the athlete can do something to make the crowd feel a certain type of way, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, and we like to see it. This is what we like to see. We want some more of this. So every Olympics is hard. It's never easy for these athletes. So we love to see the spirit of competition in live form, and we wish all these athletes on both the men and women's side nothing but the best going forward. So that will do it for this episode of the Good Game Podcast. Episode 3 has come to a conclusion. If you have not already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you follow us on Spotify at the Good Game Podcast. We will be dropping new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So don't be afraid. If you haven't missed the episode, go ahead and check some of our other episodes. Give those episodes a like. Share those episodes with a friend. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at A1K Digital Media. We will have content dropping behind the scenes on Instagram as well as Threads. So make sure you do that one time. And if you like this episode, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure to tune in next time. And until next time, peace.